Oh yeah, I forgot I was streaming. Yeah, so dude, my smile is so weird. Chapstick. All right, stop looking at yourself. It's not just me, right? Like my fucking face is all crooked. Just shut the fuck up. Stop hating yourself. Look at that fucking sign. Be loyal to yourself, accept yourself, so that you can feel happiness and joy instead of chasing perfection. Okay? So I think that's what you should do, man. Stop fucking hating on yourself. Damn. I need to get some earphones. They're back. Alright, let's do this. Paid content. I'm paying $100 for this shit on this website, and you guys are seeing it for free.
My name is Yale PhD student studying biophysics. I'm at my 5th year and I'm going to interview with BCG and McKinsey in 2 weeks.
Hi, my name is Michael. I am a PhD student in cognitive neuroscience at McGill University. I'm in my 6th year of studies and I am applying to work with both BCG and McKinsey. I really enjoy problem solving. I feel like I'm fairly natural at it. I like digging in and finding the core issues and trying to fix them as well as possible.
As advisor to managers, potentially we can change the strategy of a company and see the impact within 5 years.
Everybody should want every student to be able to show their capability in the best light that student's capable. Consulting firms will then be able to judge who's the best and who's the best fit. But again, let everybody understand the process, let everybody understand what's being looked for so that everybody can put forward their best presentation of what they're truly capable of, and then let the consulting firms decide.
It's an incredibly rare opportunity to be able to work with somebody like this before an interview. It gives a really kind of high-level look at how McKinsey operates.
I hope by interacting with Kevin, I would gain more confidence and more skills to pass through the McKinsey final round.
But you got to form some small personal connection and then go into the interview rather than sort of jump right in, or you'll do worse in the interview. And by the way, you'll have a harder time once you become a consultant.
There's no full screen, so. Okay, there it is.
A strategy of a company and see.
Where did we ever get to like have such in-depth conversations?
This is a real case. This is a decade-long argument that took place inside the Coca-Cola bottling system. Coca-Cola actually consisted for a long time of two separate entities. One was KO, as its stock symbol was known, but that's the Coca-Cola company. And what they did was they do all the advertising, all the image stuff, and they sell syrup to the bottler. But the bottler actually is an independent entity, independent corporation, independent shareholders, board of directors, everything like that. And the bottlers are the ones who take the syrup, add the water, put it in the bottles, put it in the cans, put it on the trucks, go out, service all the stores, and sort of do all the logistics, et cetera. So Coca-Cola, KO, actually makes its profit off of selling syrup. So, as I say, what KO does, it does all this advertising, it sells syrup, it makes a big markup on the syrup, and that's how it makes its profit and pays back for the advertising, makes profits. Coca-Cola bottlers, they're the ones who do all kinds of logistical work, and they actually make a small amount per bottle. So now, for a decade, the two were at war with each other, among other things, over the question of pricing strategy. One of them wanted to lower the prices on to the end consumer.
You mean the bottler or the...
Well, I'm not going to tell you which one.
Okay.
You're going to tell me which one. One of them wanted to lower the price to end consumers because, we're competing with Pepsi, and Pepsi's coming on strong. One of them actually not only resisted that, they wanted to raise the prices to the end consumer. I want you to tell me which one argued which position and why.
Okay, so exactly the question I asked you.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so it's the entire case?
That's it.
Okay, that's it.
I mean, I'm going to have some other question about what they do about
it.
But for the time being, which one was on which side of that question, and more importantly, why?
Okay, so since you said that those two are separate entities, so I would analyze from each one's perspective, putting myself into the shoes of the KO, which is the advertisement image arrangement, and the shoes of the bottler, and to think of which direction am I likely to go.
Okay.
So I will first start with the KO, which is the advertisement agency. So what they have is their revenue is coming from selling the syrup.
Yes.
Because they control the recipe of the syrup, I believe
exactly.
it's
they
a
got
secret.
The secret formula.
There's only one KO out there in the market. So, but I assume there's several bottlers or multiple bottlers.
There are, although if you want for this case to assume there's one big one, that's okay.
That's one.
Because there's one. It was called Coca-Cola Enterprises, and it had about 70% of the U.S. system was under CCE, and so if you want to just assume there's one bottler, that's fine. There was, in fact, a number of them, but CCE was the big dog.
Okay, so, and they would have equal control of the price, and I assume here?
Let's say they both had influence and they got to argue a lot. Who eventually wins the argument, we'll talk about later, but we're really asking here sort of who's arguing for what.
So here, let's first start with thinking of in the shoes of KO.
Okay.
Here, their key value or their key revenue and the cost, thinking from profit perspective view, their key revenue coming from the sale of the syrup, and the syrup was eventually made into Coca-Cola when the bottler added the water. So the more KO is kind of the upstream of the bottler than the consumers of the Coca-Cola. So what drives the revenue of the KO would be the sales of the end consumers. the sales of the bottles of Coca-Cola.
Yeah, eventually, yes.
So they would like to sell more on Coca-Cola in terms of the volume or the liters of Coca-Cola they sell. So they are counting more on the total volume here, and they always have the same margin for the syrup, which is fixed. So it doesn't matter how much the bottle was priced at the end consumer, as long as they get the same markup on the syrup.
Let's assume that it's going to be proportional, meaning that if the end bottler lowers his price by 5%, then the price of the syrup will go down 5%.
Okay, so it's a proportional.
So let's just assume they have to do that proportionally.
Proportional.
It's an interesting insight that says, hey, look, if I don't have to lower my price, but you do, hey, why don't you lower price because it might make more volume, and what the hell, I'll make more because I'm still getting the same margin. But no, let's assume that that they have to lower their price the same percentage as the bottler does.
Okay, so would you mind taking a moment to think about that in
absolutely.
this case?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I would think from either of them, the reason why they argue lower price or higher the price is always from the perspective of the total revenue or the total profitability. So definitely one party in lowering the price, they're thinking that if I lower the price, potentially this is a price sensitive product and more consumer is going to consume more. So my volume would actually go up. And then by the product of those two, then probably my revenue was going up. And the other party is arguing the increase of price is thinking more on probably on the profit margin perspective, where you have increased the price, potentially the variable cost of this business is stay the same, and then you have the gross margin to be increased. And if the fixed costs keep the same, then the profit would increase.
Okay.
So here I try to determine who amongst those two parties are more likely to think from the profit perspective or the revenue perspective.
I thought I knew where you were going, but I thought you had indicated that in both cases you were going to be thinking from the profit perspective.
Yes, but both are, and I trying to see which way of increase or decrease pricing is going to affect the margin of KO or bottler to be increased or decreasing.
Okay.
So here, let's first look at the bottler because it's closer to the consumer.
Okay.
It's easier for me to imagine. Here. So here what we have is the bottler have the revenue and the cost. The cost is composed of, I was thinking along the value chain. They are doing all the logistical things. So they have the transportation cost. Of course, they need to add the water bottling it. And then transportation and sales and distribution are coming all together with them. So they would have a variable cost associated with bottling each Coca-Cola, and they would have the kind of more fixed cost type of cost where it doesn't matter how much they produce, the plant is always there, the equipment is always running. They have a higher proportion of the fixed cost compared to the KO.
Sorry, are you asking me a question?
No. I was just thinking out loud.
Okay.
So here for the revenue side, when we are increasing, we have the price versus the volume. So assuming we only have one product, which is Coca-Cola, as far as I know, I'm price sensitive. I don't know the other consumer, but I think as a cheap Coca-Cola is a price-sensitive product, and when the price goes down, potentially the consumers might drink more or buy more.
Yeah.
And then
it is. There's because of Pepsi and price relative to Pepsi, yeah, there is some price elasticity in there, yes.
Okay, so here then, in order to understand how much the revenue could increase or so when the volume goes up, what will happen is the variable cost is going up. And the fixed cost will stay the same.
Yep.
And taking a general picture of it, our total profit would become the price minus the variable cost times the volume plus the fixed cost.
Yep.
And here we have the price going down, the variable cost per bottle keep the same.
It's going to go down a little bit. Because remember,
the economics scale.
We agreed to lower the price. If you lowered the price of the end product, Mr. Bottler, I'll cut the price of the syrup. Remember, if we said proportionally, you've cut the price 5%, I'll cut the syrup price 5%. So the variable cost per bottle will go down a little bit.
So in other words, our gross margin per bottle would stay the same.
No.
So the variable cost is mostly composed of the raw material, plus the bottling, like the cap or bottle. So and the water we add to it.
Yeah. And the cost of taking it out to the stores.
And
if people want more stuff out there, I got to put more trucks on to take more out to the stores. So
yes.
I've got more transportation costs. That's going to be variable.
So. Yes, I agree.
So I've got my entire I have a lot of manufacturing costs, and I have a lot of transportation and logistics costs, all of which are going to be variable. KO agreeing to cut the price of the syrup is just one component of my variable cost. So it might go down proportionally, but the rest of my fixed costs don't go down the same, or the rest of my variable costs don't go down the same proportion, do they?
Okay, yeah, it's not. So what happens is our gross margin per bottle would actually goes down. And even so now it depends on how much the volume is increasing here. If the increasing and the product of those two are compensated and get to the same level of it was originally, then it will be fine. But I would imagine that when the elasticity is not high enough to compensate the decrease in the profit margin per bottle.
Okay, let's hold this just for a second. I want to go to KO to point something out, and then I'm going to give you sort of a fact to help kind of cut through part of this, okay? You mentioned earlier that you thought that KO would have a more variable cost structure than the bottlers. What do you think the big cost is at KO?
I'm not familiar with how this.
But think about it sort of, remember, all they do is they make syrup, but they do all the advertising for Coca-Cola.
So the advertising wouldn't change even though you make more syrup or less syrup. So the advertising is expensive. So I would say the advertising is going to be composed of the larger proportion, and it is the fixed cost.
So that's the key thing. KO has a very high fixed cost structure because it buys all this advertising. It's frankly pretty cheap to make the syrup, but they have to sell syrup for enough to get enough margin back to cover all this advertising cost. So KO has very high fixed, very low variable costs. The bottlers, in fact, and this is why I wanted to do this, to cut through a lot of this. Let me go ahead and just let you know, the bottlers have very high variable, low fixed costs. It turns out, 80 or 90% of the bottlers' costs are variable.
So here I'm trying to look at the cost to profit model.
Oh, yeah, no, exactly.
And here, what would happen is the KO has a high fixed cost versus the bottler who has a low fixed cost. So when we are changing the price, the impact for the impact of total profit increase for the KO, if they move up, the volume here would be higher than the impact for a business where they have a low fixed cost.
Yeah, but let's try to make it a little bit crisper because it's important. Let's just sort of say, for example, let's draw one as having very high fixed, very low variable costs, and that's a revenue line.
Mm-hmm.
The other has very low fixed costs, very high variable costs, so its line looks like that.
Mm-hmm.
What's the impact of lowering the revenue, which is what happens in a price decrease?
So the impact, if we just literally draw on the graph, it would be this line here, and the profit would be the difference between here.
Yeah.
And what we notice.
So what has to happen to volume? If I have a low margin business, what has to happen to volume? Cut my prices. Let's say if I have a 7% margin business, and I cut prices 5%. What has to happen to volume before I make the same amount of profit?
It has to be increased dramatically.
Dramatically. If I have a very high margin business.
It is okay just to move a little bit, that would be fine.
Exactly. So who is the one who's arguing for lower prices?
So this one, you have the low fixed margin. This is the bottler.
Yeah.
This is the KO, and they would not like to lower the price. They would like to increase the price.
So KO says, look, let's lower the prices because that'll get it to the end consumer. The bottler says, you've got to be kidding. I can't afford to lower prices if I'm only making a 5% or 7% margin. Because if I lower it 3%, how much price sensitivity is there going to be? If I lower it by 3%, I got to get double the volume to make that up. So the two of them stay at loggerheads for a decade. How do you fix the problem?
My first intuition, without knowing how the Coca-Cola performs, I was wondering why you're not integrated into one company. And
you're right. Eventually, Coca-Cola has no choice to acquire back the bottler it spun out. It spun it out under Goizueta, and a decade later, it has to buy it back because it can't resolve this fight. And while they're fighting, they lose to Pepsi. Since they resolve this, they're back gaining versus Pepsi. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about, in general, what's the kind of strategy principles we can get from this?
so first we would like to first is this chart, basically.
Yeah.
How sensitive you are to price decreasing and how much you have to have the volume increasing to compensate the price decrease. This is the thought. And first, being a person who are acting as different level of the value chain, we have different incentives. And if possible, then you probably want to integrate forwardly or backwardly.
Okay.
And the third thing is, this is just Coca-Cola business. We can apply this to principle to the other business, like steel industry, oil and gas, such and such. If you have one chain of business is high fixed cost, the other is very low fixed cost, etc.
Okay. No, that's very good. That's very good. And that's exactly right. That understanding the fixed cost versus variable cost structure leads to completely opposite. Competitively, if you had a choice when you're setting up a business to have a high fixed cost structure or a high variable cost structure, which would you choose?
I would choose whenever it has the most power.
Okay.
It depends on the dynamics of the entire market. So first,
but let's say, again, you're thinking about opening a new business. You're about to set up a whole new company. You can make some choices that will lead to having high variable costs, low fixed costs, or high fixed, low variable costs. Which would you choose?
just that in absence of the other
No.
condition.
Bring in anything else you want.
Okay, bring in. First is because I was opening a new business, that would be a new market entry. So I would like to know who else is in the market. So what are
No, I'm sorry. I don't want to go out into what are all the things one considers in competition. What do you need to know? What's the economic thing you need to know other than that to help you make that choice?
I need to know how sensitive is the consumer to the price.
Okay.
Let's say if the consumer is not sensitive to the price, then whatever I do onto the price is not going to drive the volume up. So I would have lost my power on my pricing. So let's say we are entering business of luxury goods, where the consumer not necessarily cares about the price. Then I would like a low fixed cost so that I can have the largest margin to be achieved. Okay, give me an industry we want to go to, and how I can go from
I'm trying to
there.
get to this notion of if the customer is price insensitive, why does that mean I want a high variable cost structure again?
Oh, no.
You just said if it was a luxury good, you'd prefer the right-hand graph to the left-hand graph because the customer is price insensitive. And I can't figure out why the customer being price insensitive means I prefer that graph to that graph.
Okay, so sorry, I correct that. So if it's price insensitive, then I would choose this fixed cost. Presumably, I want to lower both fixed cost and high variable cost. But if you have to let me choose, then this model is driven by the high volume sale. So it will be applied to some goods that you want to really push the volume really high in order to generate.
Sorry, I'd like to have high volume on the left-hand graph. I'd be making a ton of money in a high volume on the left-hand graph.
Yes, but here let's assume that for the business you're looking to, you probably know what's the market size and how much volume you can potentially sell. So if you have a profit target to reach at, then you have the volume fixed. You probably can only look at the price and your cost structure.
Okay.
So sorry, I probably anyway.
No. I'm trying to. I'm trying to sort of play back to you. I'm trying to get you closer to the economic principle. I think what it actually gets down to is it all depends on the confidence I have that I can hit at least the break-even volume. In any situation where I can be highly confident that I can hit the break-even volume, I would always prefer a high fixed, low variable cost structure. In a situation where I'm not confident I can hit that, I prefer a low fixed, high variable cost structure. And the reason why is any increment of movement this way beyond break-even is far more profitable on the left than the right. But any inch I am to the left is far more harmful to me on the left than the right. And so it actually has to do with, as I'm setting up a business and I'm making a choice about whether to make or buy, or I want to have my own machines, or I want to just buy capacity from somebody else and outsource, my confidence around whether or not I can hit the break even is what swings me one way or the other.
Okay.
That's really what I was just trying to get to. You did a good job, but a couple things. One, you spent kind of a long time looking for what to think about. In other words, again, if I go back and sort of play the tape, there was a period where you weren't sure where to go, And so so we went for a long time kind of in the area of different kinds of considerations and trees, and you went back a number of times to the basic formula of profit equals price minus variable cost times volume minus fixed cost. And so I could see you kind of struggling with how to set up the equation as opposed to intuitively seeing high fixed versus low fixed, high variable versus low variable cost. So any practice that you can do to be able to move beyond the formulas into what's unique here. Because again, they're never going to give you a case where the answer lies in finding the generic formula. It's always going to be what's unique given that formula. So good instincts to sort of spot that, but you took a long time. And then the diagram you drew, essentially you got yourself, you hid the solution because you created an average diagram here of fixed and variable cost, as opposed to reflecting the difference that we were talking about by that point, which is one is high fixed and low variable, and the other is low fixed, high variable. And so again, if you're gonna, when you start turning to using diagrams or whatever, again, try to think about what's specific in the case so that you use the diagram to show you what's different among the adversaries in the game as opposed to what's an average situation of the two. Because this one, I think, actually made it harder, not easier, for you to see the answer. And then sort of once here, you saw fairly quickly in terms of the Coca-Cola system. And I think you were very good to see that in some ways there is no real compromise that works well. You know, you're going to have to sort of bring the two together because it's a system where the incentives are so out of alignment between KO and the bottler that it's just going to be hard to resolve that. And therefore, to do what's best for the both of them combined, you're going to have to do the combination. So I thought that was good. I don't know if my questions were good or bad in the last thing, but as I say, what I was trying to do with the last thing was to help you see that the condition that makes you focus left or right has to do with how confident you are you're going to be in one zone or another, because a high fixed, low variable cost structure is always more profitable once you hit break even than the other. But there's, it's called operating leverage. And high operating leverage is a game of the confident. And so anything you do to create high operating leverage, meaning create a cost structure that's highly fixed, low variable, you better be very confident that you are in the profitable zone or it'll come back and bite you. There's also some interesting consequences that we didn't go into in the case about if I were to, as a third competitor, if I were to cut prices, which of these two would I harm more? And of course the answer is the guy who has the high variable cost structure, because proportionally for him to match me is just much more consequential. So again, sort of, overall good job.
I don't think I did a good job in terms of finding the insight, because I was struggling to mathematically solve the equation where you can figure out what's the balance between...
No, I agree. You spent too much time in the formulas as opposed to what's different about the formula one adversary to another. And that's why I did give you the hint. I said, remember when I said, look, let's stop playing with this. I will tell you who's high fixed, high variable, just to kind of cut that off. So yeah, I agree that you spent a little bit too much time in that, but the fact that I had to give you a hint on that, that's okay. The cases are not like what I see on the videos on the internet, right? The cases are not, I give you this, and then you just do something logical, and that's all there is to it. The cases will almost always require you to see an insight. The cases, if they're good cases, are almost always kind of multiple question cases. Because you found this, now what do you see? Because you found this, now what do you see? And as I say, I think you did a good job in the various pieces. There was one of the bridges I had to help you across. That's okay. But I think your instinct was there was something different between the two of them, and you were searching for it. Again, if we zero in more on what's different between the players, that'll help you kind of get better at that. So don't be too hard on yourself. Almost all students, even at the MBA level, require some hint in the cases. It is rare that somebody comes in and nails it. So don't be freaked out if he has to give you a hint. We almost always end up giving hints. So it's okay.
Operating leverage. Very interesting stuff. And also a good point about like many McKinsey cases or a lot of real cases, they're not very as logical as people preparing for cases might hope it is. There's a lot more insight gaining involved, and obviously that's like the hard part, right? Because you got to be creative, you got to see those interrelationships, those hidden meanings, go behind the surface to find like a deeper concept that maybe is unique to the situation and relates all parts or several components of the case. It's not always very logical, so I think if I apply that to what I've experienced or what I've learned so far, it seems like most of the cases I do, I start off with a structure, and then it's just like asking for the data to confirm or deny the hypothesis. But what really happens is you probably first start off with the structure, and then you come up with data, but then the data is not straightforward, and the data actually has things that contradict the hypothesis. So then you have to restructure your hypothesis, and then there might be another level of insight that you come across, and then you have to structure your hypothesis again and incorporate that insight. And so in terms of that, really, I think I'm making a lot of progress in terms of structuring my thoughts, being able to point out what exact factors I'm going to talk about and then talk about them. I think I'm getting better at analyzing, but not so much. I feel like I'm not drilling deep enough yet in terms of, one factor. But I think my biggest weakness right now is graphical analysis, or just sort of gaining insight. And I think to help with that, I'm either going to look at interview math or look at the GRE, or not the GRE, the GMAT prep things. So I'm gonna take a quick look at interview math and see whether so I don't know where it is right now. Okay, interview math is right here. I wonder if this can help. Emphasizing revenue estimation. Break-even, profits, price elasticity. I could probably do the price elasticity, I feel like. That would be something helpful. Oh, it also has something I was looking for the whole time. Common fractions and rule of 72. Uh, yeah, so this one doesn't really do graphical analysis, so I think I'm going to practice with the GRE instead. Let's see if that is useful, if there's like practice cases. I keep saying the GRE, I mean the GMAT. Okay, so this is more of a, this little booklet I printed out really explains the mindset and the underlying concepts and the underlying techniques of gaining the insights. And then, but I'm looking for practice cases, practice questions. So this one also talks about the mindset, the tools, strategies. So these are questions, I think. Okay. So definitely did not print everything. I think I can go on gmat.com. Is it gmat.com? It's either gmat.com or mba.com. One of those two. I think it's MBA. Oh yeah, this is mba.com. So it's the same thing. What's the password? I keep forgetting this shit. Too many passwords to remember. Okay. Logged in. If R and S are integers, is R divisible by 7? S is not divisible by 7. What? Okay. I see. Where's the online fucking questions, motherfucker? If you repeat art that S that T, which of the following must be true? US is greater than R. Two. Two and three. Where's the motherfucking online questions? Dude, I'm so behind on my application. I just have a feeling that the 17, 18, oh my god, is that Super Day? Is that Super Day? If that's the case, then that's fucking like Saturday or Sunday. Holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. Holy shit, holy shit. No, dude, you lie, you lie. Dude, this is such a lie. Dude, there should be way more fucking questions than this. This is bull. Dude, this is bullshit. I might as well just fucking. Should I buy that? $20? This is kind of weird. Like, they sell the books and they also teach you. Wait, They administer the exam and they sell books on how to learn about the exam? What? I mean, if this is free, sure. Now, if only this website wasn't so slow, I might actually buy a little bit more books. Yeah, I actually might just get the integrated reasoning prep tool. Seems like pretty much wasted like 30 shit bucks printing out these stuff, but that's okay. Dude, I need to finish my fucking cover letters and shit. Fuck. Damn, this is fucking hard. Peace out real quick. I'll be back. Oh shit, what the fuck? Oh shit, oh Fuck. 23rd is full-time first round interviews. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Panic mode, panic mode. Shit. 23rd is the fucking, oh my god. Oh my god. Oh shit. Panic mode. Oh my god, I'm so late. I am so fucking late.